And I'm so, of course, all things will happen. They start vacuuming outside my office right as we start. So we're going to ask them to stop. So isn't that just the way life goes, right? Murphy's Law. All right. All right. So thank you. Welcome to LinkedIn for Academics. And I have a Google Doc that we will be putting in the chat for you to use for questions throughout the session. Mung, my graduate assistant, is here helping me do that right now. She's getting the vacuum cleaner to stop outside my door. And so hopefully that will make it so that you guys can all hear me. And if you can't, please put in the chat or let Kate know that something's not going right, because I'm not going to keep the chat up the whole time. So we'll start, and I need to share my screen again, don't I, guys? All right. That got me off target there. Okay. So welcome to LinkedIn for Academics, and thank you for the invitation from CERTL. I'm very honored to be a part of this and to see so many people that are interested in this topic. This is definitely, LinkedIn is definitely something that I love and have been a part of for a long time, and I'm not getting paid by LinkedIn to do any of this. So we're going to walk through some key features and tutorials, and I encourage you that if you have any questions, or to pull up your own LinkedIn profile and look at things as we go through this so that you can have some active questions. Again, I'm Karen Lawton-Dunn, and I am the Director for Graduate College Career Services here at Iowa State University. I've been in this position for 7 years as the Director of Graduate Career Services. I work with graduate students and postdocs on all aspects of their careers, from basic career interests and self-assessments, goals, their career searches, even their resumes, their CVs, networking, negotiation, and of course, how to network and build their LinkedIn profile. So that's kind of my favorite thing. And today, what we're going to talk about is really what is LinkedIn, why we should be using it, and then how to use it, and then some hands-on tutorial time. So I'm going to go through some overview, and then we'll have some time where we'll get back to all those questions. Since we have such a large group, it's going to be hard to go back and forth between breakout groups. So one thing I want to talk about first is just industry recruiters right now are using data analytics in 2021. And really, they've been using it since the 1990s. Recruiters who have moved away from paper-based applications to a digital or electronic format in the early 1990s. And that's when resumes were beginning to be scanned in to these systems and looking for what we've heard keywords. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about you need to have keywords in your resumes. Well, the reason is because they've programmed these applicant or these computer systems to read resumes for these keywords. So it's really not a person that's looking at these resumes looking for the keyword. We're really writing our resumes for the first person to be read is not a human. It is the computer. CVs, curriculum vitae right now are still being read predominantly by humans if you're applying to academia. However, in some industries, some of your CVs would also be going through applicant tracking systems. And so there's a lot of different things that you'll need to watch out about those applicant tracking systems, but we're going to stick to LinkedIn today and how that works. So we look at things like large companies like Google. They get 50 to 70,000 job applications per day. So right there, it's real obvious that a human cannot go through that many resumes. And we've already been telling students for years that they may only spend 2 to 4 seconds on a resume when they look at it. And that's not a lot of time to really get a good idea of what makes you special. Why would you be the best candidate for this job? And so they've been using recruiters, data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all those things that I work with students on in their research and in their degrees. They're using that to analyze resumes, and then they've built that now into LinkedIn. And so it just kind of makes sense. It's not something at first that I would think of, how do you make resumes or CVs into data analytics? But we've have programming that does qualitative research. So there's software that does all of this. What I want you to understand is that all of what this is called when they scan in resumes and they videotape interviews these days, all of this is called an applicant tracking system. So that entire system is really the entire portion of job onboarding. And a lot of companies have their letters that are programmed to be sent out to say you didn't get an interview. Some don't do that, but they even go into video interviews and pre-employment testing. So this whole package is an applicant tracking system. Now at Iowa State, we moved to Workday in 2019, and that is an applicant tracking system. So more and more universities, especially since March of 2020, have moved to virtual online applicant tracking systems. At least at Iowa State, they are scanning in our professional and scientific positions, like research scientist even positions, through those applicant tracking systems. They're not using them to the extent that they are in industry, but we're moving that way. And with the COVID era and move to the digital, that's really pushed everybody ahead. So down the road, I do see CVs happening, being scanned in more and looking at this. So we want to understand an applicant tracking system, but we also want to understand how LinkedIn is an applicant tracking system and actually has become kind of a favored tool for a lot of recruiters. So when you apply online, it's an applicant tracking system. If you upload your documents, it is now entered into something that could be scanning it. So it's critical in this day and age to have an online presence because all of these things are turned into online. Everybody is out there. It's not good to not have any online presence. So I know some people worry about Facebook and Twitter. Professional online presence is important. LinkedIn is a professional online presence. This is a way for you to market yourself to people in your field. It's a way to show you're competent in the current virtual world that we live in. And it allows you to be found by recruiters that are out there looking for people. So we need to have some type of an online presence. And so it's best that you be in charge of that. Twitter and LinkedIn are considered a professional presence at times. Twitter can also not be. So you need to be careful and make sure that you go out and whatever online presence you have, that you lock down those that are maybe more social, because recruiters and people will go out and Google your name, whether it comes up on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. They're going to see more about you than maybe you want them to see. So what is LinkedIn? So LinkedIn started in 2002, nearly 20 years ago. It is an applicant tracking system, and I consider it a digital Rolodex. Now, for those of you that are older that understands what a Rolodex is, it's where you take your business cards and you file them alphabetically to keep track of your contacts. With LinkedIn, the reason I jumped on in probably about 2006 since I've been on it is because I could keep track of all my contacts and connect with people and share ideas. It was built for that exact reason. The founders that built LinkedIn was to develop a professional social networking platform. They wanted to create this professional presence because Facebook wasn't professional. Twitter, I don't even think Twitter was out quite yet. And some of those other social networks that have probably gone away, they were not professional. So LinkedIn has always been considered that professional side. And everybody keeps each other honest on LinkedIn to keep that in a professional. LinkedIn is also something now that recruiters can go out and find people. And so that's why we're looking at this, because it makes it easier to be found and to show why you might be the best candidate. So we look a little bit first at some LinkedIn statistics to get a better idea. Right now, there are over 756 million worldwide users of LinkedIn, 178 million in the United States. The thing that's just phenomenal is these numbers have grown since March of 2020. So there are 57 million industries right now posting 15 million jobs, There are 55 job applications submitted every second on LinkedIn. It's actually become a better job search platform than Indeed in many times. 3 people are hired every minute on LinkedIn, and 40 million people use LinkedIn to search for jobs weekly. So it's not a small research form. It's not small at all. It's something that's very powerful. The other statistic that I found that I find really interesting and should be really motivating is that only 3 million users share content weekly on LinkedIn. And so just as much as a like on LinkedIn or sharing something can put you in that top 3%, or that top 3 million, right? Not 3%, but that top percentage as a LinkedIn user. And that's what we want to do, is we want to get these algorithms on LinkedIn to see you as a high user. And then you get to be seen more often. And I am not somebody who codes. I don't know how to do R or anything like that, but I understand how to get yourself seen more often on LinkedIn and on other algorithms. And it's by being active. All right, so why you should use LinkedIn? What is LinkedIn? So the times have changed, right? Is that the companies have been using these applicant tracking systems. They're no longer waiting for you to apply. They realize that they may not get the person that they want for that candidate. So they're now seeking out ways, what we call passive recruiting, and they're actually going out and looking for people to apply for jobs. So the concept back of when you were applying for hundreds of jobs and you sent out hundreds of applications, that's really not in your best interest. You really need to do some targeting. And what LinkedIn allows us to do is it allows the recruiters to go out in this passive recruiting and search for people that match their needs, match the skills that they're looking for, whether it's skills, whether it's keywords, whether it's finding out if they're a good a worker, if other people recommend them. So it is that professional networking site. It verifies your skills. There's verifications and places that people can give recommendations. I kind of call the LinkedIn profile your living, breathing CV. So even if your resume has to be shorter, your curriculum vitae really is your LinkedIn profile. So this is just kind of an idea, and I think this helps us understand why we need to be involved with LinkedIn, is that recruiters know that their applicant tracking systems are clunky. They don't have an easy way to pull up everybody that has an MBA, graduated from this university. However, LinkedIn Recruiter does. So LinkedIn Recruiter, this is the recruiter view up here. They can actually go down and they're going to search here for project manager. So you need to think of what are the titles that people are going to be searching for, the recruiters. They can go down and look at where you're located. They can also look at the skills that you have, and you can put in the skills that you carry. So the recruiters are filling this form out, and then they hit their search button. And up here comes about 1,000 people for this one. And these people have showed up at the top. And the reason they've shown up at the top is because probably they have the most complete profile. They somehow have triggered algorithms to move them to the top. So it might be a complete profile. It might be that they're actively posting and reposting things on LinkedIn. There's a variety of ways that you can move yourself up to be more popular on LinkedIn. 500 connections is considered kind of a level that LinkedIn thinks you're an active user on LinkedIn to get 500 connections. But the important thing to remember here is that they're searching by your title, they're looking for your skills, and they're looking for that complete profile. Now, the one thing that you notice here is that if you're looking for a faculty position or a research scientist, they're not looking for graduate student. They're not looking for graduate research assistant. They're not looking for postdoc. So when we get into their area of your experience, that's where we kind of need to retitle yourself. And that's okay to do in industry. Academia sees that not quite as right thing to do. There's no way that you could say faculty research assistant. but you might be able to say molecular biologist, graduate research assistant as your title. So get some more defining who you are with more descriptive words. So in order to take, how to use LinkedIn, we're going to dive into some demonstrations, and I'm moving pretty quickly through some of this so that we'll have time to really answer questions and hit LinkedIn and pull up things and really share them with you all. So that's what my hope is, to allow you to really get some hands-on questions here. What I want to start with first is, this is a graduate student that I've been working with that is actually looking for a research job. So when we look at this research, or at the headline is what this is called, we don't want this to just say graduate student at Iowa State, because graduate student, one, they're not looking to hire graduate students. That doesn't tell us anything about him. And it doesn't tell us, it also repeats things, right? So you say graduate student at Iowa State University, right over here is Iowa State University. This is your current employer, the top one. The bottom one is the institution that you're receiving your highest degree. And then in this headline, you can put keywords, because the human is not always reading this headline. This is also being read by the algorithms behind the scenes in LinkedIn. And they're going to be looking for those words like synthesize or analytical chemistry. And those are probably keywords in job descriptions that then are going to come up and trigger this person to be somebody that might fit for that job. So recruiters, when they turn on that search that I showed a couple slides ago, when they have a lot of these keywords that fit, then this is how people start to go to the top of that list. Let me see if there's something else I wanted to talk about on this slide. And you'll even see down at the bottom here, it says open to work. We'll talk about that. There's ways that you can put on an open to work and turn on triggers so that you're shown more often because you are open to jobs. There's ways to do that publicly so people can see it, but also behind the scenes. So maybe your boss doesn't know that you're looking for a job, which is sometimes kind of nice to do. So this is one of our faculty members that was a graduate student at Iowa State, and she's now an assistant professor. I love that she put electrical engineering, because many times people put assistant professor. She could be English, she could be engineering, she could be animal science. We don't know. So unless you put down those descriptors, both the computer, the algorithms in there, and a human has to look further. And what we're trying to do with your LinkedIn profile is make it easy for people to find out who you are, what makes you different from other people. So you're working alongside a lot of people that have the same degrees as you, but each one of you has something special that stands out different than your other lab mate. And you may be very good friends going for same positions, but there's still something that's a little different and special about you. So that's always what I tell people with your resumes, your CVs, LinkedIn, and your interviews. Figure out what makes you different, what makes you special, and then that's what's going to help sell you to people. And I know for especially our international students that this isn't always easy, because it's self-promotion. And in the United States, that is how you get jobs. You do have to learn how to do some self-promotion. And it's not being arrogant. You're just putting it out there for people to see, and then they can make the decision and decide who to interview, and then to see if you fit that qualification. So it's really not being too out there. It's something that's very needed in the United States. One thing you notice that she probably could have saved some space by not having UT Tyler on hers, right? Because over here it shows that she is currently working at the University of Texas at Tyler. So there's a lot of ways that you can save space in this headline and put in a lot of keywords. She even added PhD up to her name, which then says she has that PhD right there, and saved her using any of that heading for that topic there. And again, here's her current employer, and here's where she received her highest degree. And she has over 500 connections right now. And that's, again, as LinkedIn, they love to see that. So when you're going in and editing your LinkedIn account, whatever screen you go to, you always are wanting to look for this pencil icon. This pencil icon tells you that you can make an edit. So all of these screens, when you see that pencil, click on it and it allows you to do a lot of other edits in your profile. One of these down here is down for your headline. So I've put in career coach. I use that space. You can put whatever you want to separate out these words. You don't even have to put something. There's really no one right way. But the thing is you don't want to put career coach, comma, because when you think back to that skills list, they're doing a pull down menu of skills. And that pull down menu of skills may have career coach, but it doesn't have that comma in there. So you think of, if you code, which I don't, but I understand enough to know that I can't put that comma in there because the coding people did not type in career coach, comma. So you want to make sure you have that space before and after those keywords. Whatever you use to separate those out is really up to you in LinkedIn. I've seen stars, I've seen a lot of different things used up there. I just prefer to do the vertical line now that I figured out how to use it. And this is where you want to put keywords that will help you meet those job descriptions. I'm currently not looking for a job, so I probably, if I was looking for a job, would go in and change some of my keywords to match. I, instead of using my headline so that my students understand who I am and have a little bit a better understanding of the kind of person I am and who I will be to work with them, and what kind of a support system that I have to them. So you can kind of use these for different issues, and I use it to really try to tell them who I am as a person. But again, always remember to use this, the pencil icon, because that's going to change a lot of things as we go through. So now the skills section looks massive, but the reality is you could put up to 50 skills into the skills area. I would suggest you starting with maybe 30 to 40 skills. That allows for room for your colleagues to endorse your skills. So as you see, they have these numbers behind here. There's 4 on leadership. 4 people have endorsed this individual on leadership. The endorsements can help your algorithms from what I understand, but I don't think that's as big a deal as the fact of having that word leadership there for the applicant tracking systems looking for people with leadership skills. What LinkedIn does know, though, is that this top corner up here is the top 3 skills that you've listed in LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn knows that if it shows you up to people and somebody asks for characterization, material science, and leadership, and that's your top 3, you're probably going to show up in their profile ahead of other people that have skills further down over here in this area. I always tell people to make sure you have a transferable skill, to make sure. Now, I just got your internet connection is stable. I want to apologize. I am on campus. That shouldn't happen, but just let you know that now. So you do want a transferable or an interpersonal skills up in these top 3, because I can guarantee you most STEM students do not put teamwork or collaboration up in this top 3. They put all 3 hard skills. And a lot of people that are humanities may put a lot of those humanities skills, but they don't put the fact that they know how to code in R or Python. So make sure that you, again, find out what makes you special and put one of those things up there in that top 3 so it helps you stand apart from other people. Now, this is another area, part of the skills endorsements, just somebody else. The new thing that they've added in the last year is they've added these LinkedIn skills assessments. So you can actually go in and take a test that will kind of give you a standardized level of knowledge that LinkedIn has predetermined. And so if you pass that, you can put this badge. This badge will come up on your profile. And that is actually something that visually a recruiter can see, but more importantly, behind the scenes, the applicant tracking system, the algorithms all say, you know Python, I know Python, but you get it a little better because you passed that exam. Okay, so that's where these behind the scenes things that we're seeing on any of these applicant tracking systems or LinkedIn are really just as important, if not more important, than what people are seeing visually. Because people might quickly scan through this or may even skip over your skills section when they're looking at your LinkedIn. However, the computer knows that you have that skill. So this individual has done a couple of skills assessments. And I understand there's some criteria to it. Some students have said actually Python was a little difficult because it was not as much, it was more theory-based testing than it is actual coding. So that's just something that it gives you a couple chances, I think, to take one, and I'm not sure all of around that. But it is really more geared to those engineer, high tech. There's also some Adobe things. So it's a great one to look at, and we'll look at mine later where you can see how you can do that. It's also good to get endorsements and go out and endorse other people. Just make sure you don't go out and click an endorsement for every person. I had a student that their mother went out and endorsed every single one of their skills, and they had the last name. And so I, as a user of LinkedIn, I can go out and see who these 29 people are. And if I want to go see who they are, I might see that mom did all of those endorsements. And so as the user of LinkedIn, you can actually go in and hide some people's endorsements. Your mom will never know that you didn't leave her on there, but it just won't show up to the public. So that's one thing I really like about LinkedIn, and it allows you to determine on some of these things what is seen and what you cannot, what you don't want to be shared. So I do like that. So we're going to go into some LinkedIn tutorials, and I have just some examples here and we'll walk through. When we get to the end of these screenshots of the tutorials, then we'll really get into asking questions. I'll pull up the LinkedIn profiles and we can click around to various areas where there's specific questions. Oh, I guess I forgot, we're going to do a job search. So I do want to show you the job search capacity on LinkedIn is huge. And again, since March 2020, it's even gotten higher. Iowa State went on Workday in 2019, right before COVID hit, which I'm so grateful for now, because everything went electronic. So right now, if you were to type in faculty and then click on this jobs, here comes all of these jobs that are available and posted out on LinkedIn. You could also put faculty, comma, English, maybe, or you could try professor. You could do a lot of different areas to search. This search bar here, when you pull this down, you could search jobs, you can search people. So you might want to find people that have the title faculty in there. When you look at all of these, you can see the job description. You can also even see if there's company alumni. So I do a lot of networking with Iowa State company alumni and connecting them to current students, because usually alumni from your schools are very welcome to you to talk to them. They would love to talk to you and tell them about their job and what they do. And so this is a great opportunity to find out who they are and connect with them. And just think, without LinkedIn, we might have to go out to the website. We might start looking for names. We really don't know who might be interested in talking to us. Usually if people have a LinkedIn profile, they're usually pretty open to talking to people, I'm finding, and especially when they're alumni. The other thing about this job search skill is when you find the job and you look at this job description, if you scroll down into the paid version, which is what I have because I work on this every day, is you can see the top 10 skills of other people that have applied for this job. Now, this isn't what the company has put out. So the university didn't pick these top 10, but this is what the average of the other 6 applicants that have applied through LinkedIn. So this is just a good place to go for some, oh, I hadn't thought about putting AutoCAD. I do have that. That might be a good one to put in there, or you might see a word that you hadn't thought about. You will always see Microsoft Office, Excel, Word. There's a big, you have to just decide whether you're going to list them all or not. But what you do is you go back to that job description and analyze those job descriptions. And if they're always asking for Word, then you better put in Microsoft Word, not just the big picture of Microsoft Office. So you really kind of have to look at some of that. But this is just a nice way to get some other ideas. A few years ago, they would put the 10 that the companies put in there. which then made it kind of a cheat sheet to go back to your LinkedIn profile and add those 10 skills. So they took that out. This kind of brings up the idea of the paid version of LinkedIn. I do have the paid version because I work with so many students and helping them. You do have so many in-mails is what they call them, to introduce yourself to people. You also can see this information in the jobs. Sometimes you can see a little further in, but I really don't think it's worth that money. It's pretty expensive to get while you're going through graduate school or even as you start your job search. What I would suggest is that many times you get an email that says you can have 1 month free and you have a month. So basically you get 2 months for the price of one. And I would plan that. I would make sure that when you get that 2 months, you've already put together a list of companies you want to go look at or schools, a list of people that you'd like to look for further. And you've kind of organized your research so that when you get that paid version, you really use that time wisely. And then make sure you unsubscribe, because they will continue to charge your credit card. So make sure you unsubscribe at that point. There are times that I've worked with international students that are getting close to when they need to leave the country. Then I definitely think it's probably worth your time. I think one thing to know about job searches and career searches in university settings is that there are usually a lot of people out here that can help you for free. So at Iowa State, we have the Graduate Career Services. There's a national organization called Graduate Career Consortium, which is filled with career educators for PhD, masters, and postdocs. And we don't charge. So I really want to encourage you to try to look and seek out those people that can help you, because recruiters don't charge you. They get paid by the people that hire you. And so you really shouldn't be paying a lot of money to other people to have them help you find the job when you're still in college. When you're out, you might need to hire a recruiter or hire somebody to help you update your profile. When you're in college, you should be able to find some resources. Now, I talked about posting. So we think back to Facebook. Probably everybody has Facebook. This is really where you would do your posting. You could add photos. I don't do a lot of my own content, but what I do is a lot of liking, okay? I repost somebody else's content and I like it, and I share it. This is that part we talked about only 3 million people do weekly. So again, it doesn't take a lot of work to go in and like one post once a week to go in and kind of help your algorithms to move up. And once you start using this, I mean, I use this for news. This is my feed for news. Twitter is connected with LinkedIn. And so sometimes when you post on LinkedIn, you can have it turned on so it will send that post to Twitter. There are groups on LinkedIn, and I think what's happening now is that Twitter has become more that conversation piece, but you can drive them to longer articles here. So there are some things called blogs that you can do right under here for writing an article. You can actually do a blog. So you could push people here from Twitter that you put out there. So there's a lot of ways that these can connect. I know I'm just screaming through this really fast. So I want to get to our show and tell. I want to invite you all to feel free to link in with me. But what I ask you is when you ask somebody to invite them to be a LinkedIn connection with you, always give them a note. Always write a note that says, hey, I saw you in this session today. I'd like to connect with you because why? Okay, so a connection is actually connecting with somebody. You can also follow people. So you can follow me so you see what things I post. You can follow a lot of big names you'll find out there that are people that you can follow within your field or other users and movers and shakers in the world. And that following works just as easy if they don't want you to connect with them. So some people are very particular about who they connect with. I connect obviously with Iowa State alumni, but if people have told me why they want to connect, I'm much more likely to accept them as a connection than I am if I just get a let's connect. Lately, I've been getting a few sales people that are trying to connect with me to sell me their product. I would rather them not do that, right? I don't accept those unless I think that's a product that I might use. I just don't have a budget to accept all of those. So I don't have the time to look at all of those. So I don't always accept them. And you have to get over not feeling bad because this is not personal, right? There's so many connections out here and you really have to be careful that you take care of yourself. You can set all sorts of privacy levels at different times in LinkedIn, depending on what you need professionally and personally. We also will send this whole deck of slides to you at the end. And in here, we have a lot of the resources of where we've gotten some of our statistics. I want to thank my grad student, Meng Shell, for putting this lovely PowerPoint together. She did all of the graphics. It looks nice, and pulling this and making this look better. You can reach us at this email at gradcareers@iastate.edu. And I also do have a LinkedIn group that's called ISU Graduate College Career Services. I use that really for Iowa State students. You can start your own groups. A lot of that's kind of going back and forth with Twitter. So that's still, the jury is still out on how that's going. So I'm going to stop sharing for now. And then we're going to go down to some questions and see what people might have. And I can always pull up that share when I need to. And I see that people have, maybe we should put that Google Doc back in. And that way you can put in questions that you might have in that Google Doc. And we'll start looking at some of these questions. Let me see. So, example of titles to use when you're a postdoc. So yeah, let's see. What I'm going to do is get my profile screen, my LinkedIn up here so that I can share this screen with you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen in a second. I'm going to move this picture off of here. And use that Google Doc to write notes or use the chat section. Either one, Kate and Meng and I will keep track of that. So get all of my things around here. Okay, so we have Vahid. So he is a graduate student, but it's really not going to be a lot different. And I can pull up a postdoc too. When you get down to this section of experience, okay, this is where, oh, he is a postdoc, sorry. This is what he's done. Postdoc research associate in biomicrofluids. I can't even say all these words, right? So what has happened is rather than just saying postdoc research associate, we don't know what field he's in. And the applicant tracking system within LinkedIn doesn't know what field he's in. Take a drink. By adding these descriptors, now we know more clearly what area they've been. Visiting science and biochemistry. Here's a staff member that talks about those more defining information of what they are. So that's one thing that you would do with that in talking that. And then we have Reminder is one of my other students here that I have. And he had bioinformatics, computational biology PhD candidate. And so this he put in because he did have this research assistant, right? But he was also doing his own research. So to take credit for his own research, he just put in PhD candidate and was still able to put information about his own research. On my notes, I wanted to kind of look at the education when we look at this here. So we'll scroll down. Sorry about this going a little faster than I wanted. So this is the education. I suggest that sometimes you might want to write a little bit more information in the, besides just your degree major. When we go over to, I'm just looking for mine. There it is. When we come down to my education, I have
Your screen share went away.
Oh, my screen. Okay, well then let me, thank you for telling me that. Okay, did it get back to, was it back there with Reminder? Was it gone then too?
Looks
Yeah,
like, yes, it was gone.
It was gone. Okay, so let me just go over this again. All right, so here's Vahid, okay? This is the one that we did talk about. Thank you for telling me that. When we go down to his title, here's where it says postdoc research associate in this biomicro, right? So here's where he's added those descriptors to the title. Sometimes faculty say you can't say you're a researcher, a biochemist researcher, because you're not being hired as a biochemist research person. In industry and in the world, even in academia, the HR office, you can say that, okay? That's only that you can't say that as far as the pay scale, right? You can't say you're a faculty member. That's not one thing you can say, but you can say that you do this. A reminder, I wanted to show you his. He has, this is where it's really helpful in that he has bioinformatics, computational biology, PhD candidate. So as I was saying is he did have a research assistant going on at the same time that he called just bioinformatics, but he also was doing his own research that then included that computational biology. And so he was able to put that title. As these applicant tracking systems go through, they actually look at these titles of your positions first before they start scanning through these other words. So this headline that's up here on the top, and then these titles of your positions are all very, very important in the applicant tracking system within LinkedIn. Everybody see that okay? Right. And then I wanted to show you over on education. Sorry, as I scroll down here. So my education is a general studies program. And so a lot of times people are like, well, what is this general studies? So I always like to write a little note down here that it just explains a little bit more about that. And many of you with PhDs, you know, the bachelor's might be okay, right? The major and your master's major might fit. But by the time you get to a PhD and even a postdoc, you're usually really focused in on a certain area. So if you just put the major up here, it's probably not going to be as descriptive as you need it to be. And so you might want to put this a little bit more information about what your research or your specialty area is in here. LinkedIn is kind of read section by section. So people will go in and read just the education or just up in the experience. So you can repeat things in different areas because people do go through that. Let's see, next I wanted to just run down to the skills here. A reminder had a lot of skills. And so here's his skills. So here what shows up is the top 3 that he put in. So bioinformatics, machine learning, and his presentation skills. And then as we look additionally, we can see all these. LinkedIn determines if these are industry knowledge based on when you set up your account. And then they go to tools and technologies, interpersonal, and other. So if you see, I still think he could add some more interpersonal skills, but he just got a great job. So obviously he's doing fine. He doesn't need to do that. But I think that if that's something that you're looking for, he also completed a bunch of these quizzes, these skills tests. So that obviously has helped him a great deal. And he landed a great position with Illumina. So he's doing really good with that. Somebody, I think in the questions I saw had asked how many times you have to take these tests. I am not sure. I think a student had told me that they said you could try it twice and then maybe, I would assume you probably have to wait maybe 6 months or something to try it again. I don't think they're extremely difficult, but they weren't just like a job interview where you're going out and coding. It was more theoretical, higher level. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. So can Kate or Monk, can you tell me what other questions that?
Yeah, you can go to page 3 on the Google Doc.
Page 3. Oh, okay, let me go to that.
I have sorted by category.
Okay, I don't think I have the Google Doc. Let me stop my share again and then I'll pull it up again for you guys. All right. Okay, page 3.
Scroll down.
Scroll down. Okay, there we go. Do employers still care about the Myers-Briggs personality types? Something that should be referred to in LinkedIn profile. You know, I see Myers-Briggs, I see the strengths profile. So I don't know if Myers-Briggs has the corner in the market like it might have a few years ago. There's a lot of different profiles. Sometimes I do see people in putting those up there. I don't think it can hurt. That might be a good section for your about section in LinkedIn. And that's kind of where you introduce yourself, that you could give some of those different personality types. It also is going to depend, and you're going to hear depends all the time from me. It depends on your major and your field. So if you're in a business major and they use a lot of the Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or those different things, then it's probably important. If you're in a field that's plant biology or plant breeding and they don't really use that over in the plant breeding programs that you've worked with, then it's not as important. So this is where you really have to do your research on your program to see what's kind of been done. And this is where I suggest you go out and find other people that are in your field and see what other people are doing like that. And that's a good way to start, is to do that. In the bio at the top of a profile, do you think we should use first person? I'm a specialist. Yes, that's an excellent question. Let me take you to a reminder. Well, let me take you. And then I'll share my screen for you. Okay. Now I'm getting this down, everybody. You know, it is 2021, so I should be better at that. I've been doing this for a few years now. So his about section is really probably a little too long, okay? However, he does have it sorted out, but really the about section is kind of a summary. And yes, you do want to use first person. So you would want to say, I'm interested in this. I don't think either of my samples have that in the first person. Let's see if Reminder did. Yes, he did. So here's what he did, right? He has currently a PhD candidate. Now he's employed, so he needs to change this, right? He gave them some quick overview of who he is. So if you were doing a resume, it might be that summary section. He has his contact information. Now you can list your email in LinkedIn yet. They don't make it so you can't, but he did it in more of a coding manner so that if LinkedIn were ever to stop allowing you to share your email there, you could. But he also has his personal website, his GitHub. So this is a great place to add some of this additional information. And somebody might look at this to really get an overview of what your research is in, what areas you're interested in. There's really no right or wrong, just like in a resume and CV, there's multiple different ways to do these things. But that would be one that, yes, do that first person wise, okay? And now I gotta go back to my Google Drive. I tell you, whenever I take this out, oh, there it is. All right, so let's see what else we have. Should I spell out artificial? Okay, so I think whenever you're using keywords like artificial intelligence or applicant tracking system, or even Iowa State University, I think it is important to spell those out first, and then to put the parentheses around them. And then from then on, you can use the abbreviations. So just like you would in other writing, I think you should do that out, spell that out first. We don't know what those companies have done. We don't know if those companies have only put AI. We don't know if they've put in artificial intelligence. So I always think it's better to do a little bit of both. And that way we kind of hopefully hit that mark. I have a full-time industry job and teach as adjunct in the evening. How do I showcase that adjunct? All right, so let's go over. I am going to go, I have a Jim and Shai. So this is a former faculty, adjunct faculty of mine that I've worked with. And his profile is probably not completely up to date, but he taught for me. He's still teaching there, but he taught for me 10 years ago when I worked there. And so this is what he's done. You know, he still has his current job. He also has his present job. LinkedIn will put this in reverse chronologically according to when you started. So since he started as an adjunct, before he started at Wells Fargo, it puts this adjunct position first. But what he could do up in this part I would say to put more about what kind of attorney he might do. Obviously, it's probably finance, but then also put teaching. I know he teaches some high-level finance classes, and he could put those key words up there. Maybe not, and you could even put adjunct faculty, and that might help get that faculty in there because you could actually use that as a title. Now, one of the things that he hasn't done is this comes up as Wells Fargo, but it has just this little plain LinkedIn blue, right? That means that he needs to go back in to here and pull that LinkedIn in there. So if I go into my jobs, when you hit your pencil and I go down to my jobs, where is it? Oh, I already have it. So it's when you add a new position, you're going to go into the company name and it will actually link it to Iowa State's LinkedIn profile. So that's really what he needs to do on his is link that. So LinkedIn, the algorithms behind the scenes see that he works for Wells Fargo, not just the person reading that. So that is one way that you could do helping that with the adjunct. Does that help for the adjunct position, hopefully? And feel free to take yourself off mute if you have another question, okay? Is humor ever appropriate in the profile? That is a great question. You know, it's going to depend on what kind of humor, right? We live in an age that humor can be offensive very quickly. However, some fields, it's really appropriate to decide what kind of person you are and what kind of field you're in. So humor might be appropriate. I think you just need to be thinking really hard about whether it is at somebody else's expense, okay? And even at your own expense. We don't want to do a lot of self-deprecating humor because we want people to think positively of you. And I know that sometimes our self-esteem isn't the greatest. We have a lot of imposter syndrome. We all do going on doing this. So it depends. Feel free to email me or to send me a note and ask me and show me specifically how you might have this sample. I'd be happy to give you some advice on that. And that's for anybody. If there's something that's really specific, again, we're going to have people in here that are on, in mechanical and electrical engineering to anthropology to maybe ag services, all over the board and majors. So we really want to be able to get everybody on that. Let's see. Undergrad students to have a file on LinkedIn. Yes. And is it useful for applying for graduate school? I think LinkedIn is going to become more, it is becoming more appropriate for graduate school because more and more universities are using it. Yes, undergrads need to have LinkedIn profiles. Basically, all recruiters, what happens is they get out there and they can't sort all of that information that comes in their applicant tracking systems. And so they go over to LinkedIn, they use that sorting system. And what happens is when somebody comes up to the top, instead of going back out to that applicant tracking system and looking for somebody, finding their resume or CV and pulling that up and looking at it, they just click on LinkedIn. And the thing about LinkedIn is that everything's the same, right? It's apples to apples. So everybody's profile is the same. When we're doing resumes or CVs, people have them in all different orders. And it's hard to go from one CV to the next one because somebody may have put their publications at the end and the next one put them at the beginning. And so we're going through all these papers looking for things. So that's kind of the beauty of LinkedIn is it just standardizes everything, which really makes then that search engine work better. But I do think that more and more schools are using it. I'm going to share this again and just show you an example of Iowa State. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to their HR, but Iowa State jobs. So if I were to do Iowa State jobs, here comes up all these Iowa State jobs. And I know that Jerry is one of our passive recruiters here at Iowa State. And they are now posting. So if I were to scroll down to hers, in this activity area is where I can see what she's posted. So she was thanking farmers today. Here's Iowa State job opportunities. So that's how I found out the name of the group, right? I just went in there and this is their group. I thought I followed it, but I'll follow it now. And now they're posting all of their positions out on here. So universities are going more and more to using LinkedIn to search for positions. They probably right now faculty are not going to be promoted as much, but postdoc positions, I just want to do a quick search of postdoc on here and show you. Since we've gone to Workday and we're looking at jobs, here's all these postdocs positions that are coming up. And so it may say education outreach administrator, but somewhere in that is in there as postdoc. And so we're going to see these, and then we can sort by company, we can sort by on-site or remote, we can do a lot of sorting, and here we can sort through and see what the job descriptions are. So universities are using this for postdocs. They are also using this for faculty position. And you would want to be more specific because like that's a high school position, but you could go into a certain company. Let's say, let's just do University of Miami. Here's all of their positions that are coming up under faculty or PNS positions also. So the universities, as they've moved over to this Workday or these applicant tracking systems, ours is called Workday, others are different ones. They are going in and using this to find people, and you can actually apply for a job right here. And whether you use a CV or resume is going to be down here and looking at, you know, they want the JD. You'd want to really read through this and say, are they looking for a CV? Are they looking for a resume? But always remembering that your LinkedIn profile is your living, breathing CV. Okay, that's where it doesn't matter how many pages it goes because it's all digital. So that's the beauty of having this, is that you can always keep this up to date, and then you can send in a targeted resume or CV for that position that you decide to apply for. One other thing that I wanted to show you really quick that I haven't gotten to is recommendations. So the other thing that I think really helps somebody's profile get over the top great is, first you have to have those skills, right? So we have our skills in here, is getting recommendations. Very few people have recommendations. And now with LinkedIn, recommendations, oops, let me share that screen again. Recommendations are underneath your skills. So it's down here. This is an area that most people don't have, and it really replaces the need for recommendations after an interview. So what I'm seeing is people going out here, scrolling through somebody's profile and seeing, oh, I like what they say about themselves. Look at their experience. There's their skills. Oh, wow. Other people think they're nice to work with. They look like good, they're good colleagues. Okay. So when you're getting jobs, it's not necessarily that your PI has to be your first recommendation. Sometimes the best recommendations are your colleagues, are your fellow graduate students, your fellow postdocs. Maybe you have a mentor. Maybe you've been a mentee for somebody, and maybe that person can refer you as a mentor. So you want to show them how you are as a coworker. So these are some that I've received. And the beauty about these recommendations is that when I go back into this edit, I can now see, and I can ask this individual for a revision. And I can say, hey, Joshua, you misspelled my name. Or just, Joshua, can you speak more to my teamwork abilities? Because I really want to focus on teamwork for this job. And they could go in and that's what they could write theirs on. So you could just ask all of your people that are giving you recommendations to focus on, here's my programming skills, here's my teamwork skills. What happens is when they give that, then I'm asking for a revision. I get to make the final decision on whether it's posted. Now this individual asked me for one. I'm just showing you a little bit. So I can tell that right now I'm showing Joshua's. And then when I go over here, James, I can see that he is showing my recommendation to him. I can go in and revise it at any time, and I can go in and delete it at any time. So if something were to happen that I don't want to support that person anymore, I could go in and delete that. They give you a lot of privilege on whether to show this or not, which I really appreciate, because I've been on LinkedIn about 15 years. And so there might be some that I want to take off. Now, sometimes to find this recommendation section in your profile, close your eyes a minute while I scroll to the top. Clear up here is this
Are
add a
recommendations
section.
the same as endorsements?
Say that again.
Are recommendations the same as endorsements?
I'll show you in just a minute. We'll kind of get to that, okay? Thank you. So this add a section to find the recommendations is sometimes a little cumbersome because they've put it under this additional. So you go to add a section, additional information, and there's request for recommendation. You have to be a first degree connection, meaning you and I are directly connected in order to get those requests. So if I know you through somebody else, that means we're second degree connection. I can't endorse you. We have to be a first degree. So what I would say for references, that is kind of our references. The endorsements would be down here also. You can endorse specific skills like these. So this is kind of your endorsements. So what's kind of unique is that in career counseling, I've been endorsed by 2 other people that are also highly skilled in career counseling. So it also kind of, it really starts to summarize, you know, how many of these are legit. You can go in and look at grant writing and see who's all given me endorsements. And this is where I have turned off some people because either I didn't know them very well, or I didn't really think they knew my grant writing ability. And so I turned them off because I didn't feel I wanted them to be there. And that's what's nice, that if it is your mom or your aunt, you can turn it off and they don't know, unless they start looking for their name on there. But this is kind of the endorsement. The recommendation would be more like your references that you would get. So what's happening is that recruiters and even at universities are going right over to click on LinkedIn because they get a quick version of your resume CV in the same format as everybody else. If they scroll down here and see that you already have recommendations, I've had students that as soon as they made changes to their LinkedIn and add these recommendations, that within literally hours, they've gotten messages from recruiters, and there's these message area down here that have said, will you apply for this job? Are you interested in this job? And sending them the link to this job, because this saves them, you know, they're looking for what is a good bet on a hire. How do I know that this is a good bet? Well, resumes, CVs, it's all on paper. This is, you know, this tells us more about people, right? Are you going to be somebody we want to work with? I always say, is it somebody you want to go to lunch with? And that's also the picture that you use at the top. You want a professional picture. I need a new picture. I know that. But you want an American cultural norm is a smile. When you go to interview, you want to have a smile. That is an American cultural norm. And I know for people, international students, that could be very difficult. For introverted students from anywhere in the world, that's difficult. But it is one of those cultural norms that we kind of have to deal with. And so this kind of tells us, oh, does that look like somebody I'd want to work with? There's always bias, and there's bias in this. I've had students that have had heavy beards for religious reasons, and he ended up shaving some of that lower and lower. But I always told him that I would hate for him to, you know, shave off that beard that's so important to him, because that's who he is. And what we want to do is make sure that you find a place to work that accepts you for you. And if they're not going to accept who you are, then it's not going to be a healthy work environment. And I know that's easy for me to say because I'm employed. This gentleman, it took him a few years to get a job, but now he's a faculty member. And I ran into him in the store a couple years ago, and he had been looking for about 2 or 3 years, stayed working as a research scientist here. And he said, I'm going to be a faculty member. And he's now a faculty member at a good sized university in the Midwest. So I just get goosebumps when I think of that, because I'm just so excited for these people, because he didn't sell out who he was and he still got to where he wanted to be. It's just sometimes not always on our timeline. The world doesn't work on our timeline. We like it to work a lot faster. Let me go back to this Google Doc. Strategy to behave when you receive a request to connect. I think if you go to the same university, one, you might want to look and see if you're in the same area. You could always write back and say, oh, thank you for the invitation. Are you in this major, or do you know this professor? Or is there something you'd like to talk about? And just ask them back, a little bit more, to do a little bit more inquiry. Or you could decide to connect with them, see what they do. And if you decide you don't want to connect with them, you can always go in and unconnect with people. And I've done that before. They don't send them a note that says, Karen unconnected with me, she dumped me. They don't do that. I love how LinkedIn does that pretty gracefully about that. So I would, maybe if you don't have any idea and they're in a whole different program, but look at their profile. Maybe you do have something in common and they are going to want to talk to you about that. So sometimes you have to do your research, because not everybody has gotten the information that they need to tell you why they want to connect. And so now that you know that, you can actually begin and keep that conversation going and help teach them that that's the better way to do that. For those focusing on teaching faculty, what type of keywords are going to move to a higher position on recruiters' views? Wow, this is a big question, because the younger generation I'm finding of grad students and 30-somes and younger, 35 and younger, are starting to use LinkedIn, okay? So our faculty that are over probably 50 are not quite as supportive of LinkedIn and don't see how it's helpful. I think the best thing is the same as what I would tell an industry, is looking at those job descriptions, seeing what the keywords are in those fields. I think flipped learning is a huge thing right now. I send out my webinars and ask people to come to my appointments ready to talk about their resume after they've watched that. If you are in English and now you know how to use some of these new coding skills that maybe other generations haven't known in that same field, make sure you have those new keywords that are coming. Zoom, WebEx, right? Slack, how to use all this digital media, Twitter. I had said, Mong, I was so excited to hire her as a grad student, because she knew how to do Qualtrics really well and Canva. And I'm not very good at those. And I really love hiring somebody that's going to help me either do some things for me, but also then maybe teach me. I can learn from them. So, sometimes you're going to find people that want to see all those new skills. They're not going to be threatened by that. They're going to be excited, because they're going to think, we would love to have somebody on our team that knows how to do a website, because none of us do, and we don't have a person to do that. So again, it always depends. But I do think looking at what those keywords are, doing your research, right? I call this informational interviewing, but you want to talk to people in those fields and find out, what are some new keywords? What are some new key skills that I'm going to need in that program in the next 3 to 5 years, depending on how long it'll be before I graduate. And then spending this next few times in college, getting those skills, so that when you're on that job market, you have some of those skills to market to people. So that's where the networking has turned really easy in this COVID era, because everybody's used to getting on and doing a virtual interview. Or virtual conversation. I would never have done this 3 years ago, right? We wouldn't have all sat through a workshop. And now I do this 3 or 4 times a week. And so this is wonderful. People will get on and do a Zoom call with you for 10 minutes and talk to you about what it's like to work at this place and what skills you might want to put on your resume or on your CV for that. So that's just all about that networking. Let's see, can you review the privacy options in LinkedIn? Yes, you can. And in here, there are a lot of settings. So always go to this picture. This kind of sets you up to the home page, and then you can go down to settings, and this is your settings. So you can do visibility, and you can decide, I say when you're looking for jobs, you want to be open to everybody. But here's blocking. You can go in and actually block people. And I've had to when I've had salespeople or certain people that I just don't want to hear from them anymore. Usually it's salespeople that just don't give up, or somebody that's looking for money. But you can go in and decide how much is private. But when you're looking for a job, you at least recruiters and people. Tip here, you want to go to this job seeking preferences. And this is where you can go down here to signal your interest in recruiters at the companies you've created alerts for. So if you specifically created alerts for Iowa State University, this is a behind the scenes algorithm that will show you to Iowa State and that you're open to opportunities from that location. So that's a great thing that you could turn it on the front side. So out here, I can turn it on open to, and I can decide finding, providing services, hiring, and I can make that public or not. Or I can go behind the scenes into this area here and the setting. And right down there, setting in the privacy. There are parts of LinkedIn that you should always leave public or private. That's a good question. LinkedIn changes this settings and privacy often. Okay, and I know I haven't gone back through here every single one for a long time, and I need to. So I'd say like quarterly, go through and kind of look at this and save your manage your resumes and answers. I say yes, because if I was to apply for something, I don't want to have to remember what I did. So I want them to save those things. I think it's really important to be able to be seen by everybody especially when you're looking for jobs or you're wanting to collaborate. I forgot to talk about, I think, Shauna, I just remembered that the faculty member here, she uses LinkedIn. She keeps in touch with her NSF collaborators, the program directors at NSF. She's on several conferences, and they use this as a way to go out and look for people to present and kind of look at them before they give them an offer to present. So the more information you have out here, her group's going to be able to go out and see if you might be somebody they want to come and present. So she uses it a lot in that area. Also just research in your topic area. That also helps you keep in touch with other people that are interested. And she's got over 500, and she's a fairly new faculty member. So she uses that quite a bit. Let's see, job search. Not a faculty, what about R&D within corporations? Oh boy, that's a big question. I love this one. So whoever said that, what would be a title? What's specifically R&D? Like biology, microbiology? You can take yourself off mute. May not be here anymore, but research scientist, okay. If you just say research scientist, you're going to get a lot of jobs. And even if you say R&D, that's not going to be, oh, I still have Miami in here. Let's take out Miami. And now it'll just senior research. So yes, you can also search if I wanted to do Facebook. I can search all these research scientists in Facebook, and you can, it's just like a Google search, really. You can get lower and lower and put more keywords in there. There's a lot of people, students of mine that have been hired recently at Microsoft and areas. Amazon has quite a few. I wanted to show you, let's see. I know I'm kind of running out of time here. Let's see, Intel. I have quite a few students at Intel. We'll show the jobs, research scientist. So then you could probably go down, is it a research scientist, and what would be that specific, right? But the thing to know is, like, when I look at here at Intel, I can go over here and see what people I know at Intel. And all of these people listed are students that I've worked with over the last 7 years, and they're working at Intel. So I, a lot of times, will go over here and introduce them to people with a message and say, hey, Matthew, would you mind talking to this PhD student on what it's like to work at Intel, and do that informational interview. And that works out great for people. Approach for applying for internships. Mid-years PhD. When is a good time? I think it's a good time always to start. Internships depends when it was to start. But if you're looking at an internship for next summer, you want to start applying now. A lot of industries, they used to be later, but industries a lot of times want to have all their internships figured out before December. So you do want to start applying for those now. LinkedIn is worldwide, so it is used over Canada, UK. There are some other programs one's called Going Global. Let's see if I could type it in here. We have that at Iowa State, but there are different places that you can look for things around the world for specific places, for specific jobs. And where do you take the skills assessment? We will go down to back to you have to be in your own profile. And I have not taken one yet. Sorry to go too fast through here. Right there, it says take a skill quiz. And then they even tell me an industry knowledge. Well, I don't have any of those. So I might be able to do Word or Excel. And these will come up based on what your technology is. And here it tells you about, what it takes to do the badge. So that's how you do those skills. I don't know if they can tell if you failed an assessment, but you know what I love about LinkedIn is you go right over here to LinkedIn Learning and you ask LinkedIn Learning. You can Google that question and you will find lots of people that will give you advice on taking those skills tests. Google is a wonderful place because people have put out so many things. So always think about asking that. Oh, your volunteer experience, that is a great place to look at. You just keep scrolling down a little further. And here has your accomplishments. And then I think just above, here's my volunteer experience. So you can put in a variety, whether it's community, professional, whether it's academic within your field or the university, you can put all of those things here. Types of should I post? Oh, the topical, that's great. ResearchGate, I'll just say quickly, I think it's very effective. I think it's important for people. It's really where you find research, right? The same as Google Scholar, it's where you're posting your research. The difference is that I would use this as a link to ResearchGate, okay? I put my publications that I don't have publications, but I think they come about right down in here. There's a place for publications. And then you could link them to your ResearchGate. That's what I would do with that. The topical news, this is your home. So here's your home. So this is one of my alumni, and she is an editor at a science magazine. I could like this, I could share this. You can follow hashtags down here just like you do on Twitter. There's a bunch of hashtags you can go in and follow. But your feed on LinkedIn is determined by the things that you like, the things that you share, the hashtags that you have. So since I work with people from engineering to plant science to humanities, my field gets really diversified, right? But if you were really in one major, you're going to see probably more of those same topics. I even read the news in here, and there are advertisements in here. So here's, an associate director of community development and recruitment. So I see a lot of positions that are open in academia, and I just see them more and more every week. So if you're definitely looking at student personnel, and if you're looking at administration in higher ed, these are definitely places where you're going to be finding them posted. So a lot of my people that I work with are all in career services, so we're all sharing jobs. That's one of my former students. Now, she put in a personal statement. Not normally people don't, but you know, I think that's fine. She's kind of reintroducing herself. She's been off for 3 months. So it's probably a good idea to say, hey, I'm back, I'm at work, and this is my family, and let's get going. So as long as you don't do that on a weekly basis, I think you're fine.
How did you add your hashtags underneath your name?
Oh, you know what? That's relatively new. Let's see if I can get back to that. Now we're going to be checking my skills. Go out to my view profile. Let's go to my pencil. That was a new thing. Wow, where'd they do that at? Oh, wow. So I don't know where I did that at.
Can I help you with that?
Yes, please, if somebody knows.
Yes. So if you went to your home, go home. go to
Okay,
home, And if you say you like something and you wanted to share, so say that Science Magazine article and you click share.
yeah,
No.
I'll just like this because I always like these science
Yep. And click
organizations.
share.
Okay,
When you click on share, part of your statement, you see it up here. If you write anything, do you see a hashtag at the bottom?
oh, right, to add those hashtags. Is that, oh, yes. So that's
That's
where you'd
you.
add the hashtag
Yes.
in
So
the
if you-
comment.
Right. So if you, whatever you want to write, they will populate a hashtag for you, or you can make your own.
Yeah, is that the question that you were looking for the hashtag? Because I was thinking you were talking about underneath my
No,
heading.
No, it's
Yeah,
underneath your heading. That's
Yeah,
what you're looking for.
that's
Just
what I-
edit.
This
Uh,
part, is that what you're thinking of?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking of, and I don't recall where that
Yeah,
came up.
there. You can edit from at that point. Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure. That what a lot of times I do is I follow, like I'm an all-star in LinkedIn, okay? But a lot of times this will tell you and lead you through things to do next on your profile. And so I know that when this was new, it popped up and I just said, yeah, I'll add it. And now I really don't even know. I'd have to do some searching on that, but I'm sure I could find it. It's probably, oh, it may be under here. Intro, it says I've done that. Yeah, I don't know. And then you can also put in your languages, and I think that's good. Yeah, I don't know. Send me a message and we'll keep trying to see how we do these hashtags.
I will. Thanks.
Yeah, because I wish I could remember. Oh, another quick one. I know we're almost at time. This is the thing that you are going to love because nobody else is going to have this. You can edit your public profile. So you have your URL and LinkedIn gives you a URL. So when you click on that edit your custom URL, it comes up here and here's your little pencil. There you can type in your name. Now I was able to get my name and I changed my name about 7 years ago. It's probably not a very common name. Excuse me, but I have worked with so many students, domestic and international, that have gotten their full name by typing it in on LinkedIn, which just tells us out of 756 million users, not many people know how to go in and change their name. And you just type it in there and save it. So if we go out to her, she had changed hers, right? She got it. And it looks so much better when you put it on your resume or you put it different places. It looks professional. Recruiters see that and they go, they know what they're doing. But when you come up and you have I don't even know if I could find anybody that doesn't have a a program. Let's see. Yeah, all of these people would have it. But you can go into this contact area for other people, and this is where you're going to see their profile. Back in settings and privacy, this is where you could decide what to keep private. I would keep your phone number private. I don't really think that that's something that I would put out on LinkedIn, but you could definitely keep your email. And I sometimes advise people to do an email that's just for job search or just for work. So maybe not put my Gmail first, maybe use my Iowa State email first. And then always make sure you have a second email as a backup. In the early days of LinkedIn, they only allowed us to have one email. And when people were getting laid off during the recession, they'd get to work and that email was already gone from work, which meant they lost their entire profile, LinkedIn profile. So always make sure you have a backup email so you don't do that. I know we're hitting the end of our time. Oh, worry about ageism. You know, ageism, yeah, and I'm there. Ageism is real and it is going to be there whether they see your picture on LinkedIn or not. Just by looking at, even if you don't put what year you graduate and they see how many years you've been out in the work world, or if I say I've been working 30 plus years, they know, oh, okay. Again, it's a matter of, we know that's illegal, but we know it happens. And it's a matter of finding those companies that are valuing our institutional knowledge, our long-term knowledge that we have, and the fact that if we're somebody that really works well with the younger generation, we need to somehow show that. I don't know how to combat that ageism. I wish I did. ORCID, yes, is also going to be very important. Those are great places for your research, and those are very research focused. So always use those ORCID. I know that's a really important one. Having a time we deal with. Yeah, I obviously, so some of you probably go home on the weekend and look at Twitter and Facebook, and I go home at night and look at LinkedIn and send messages to people. So I'm just a nerd that way. But yeah, I think it really have to work on that on your own. But if you spend, 20 minutes a week or even 15 minutes a week, just starting out here at your home and seeing if there's any articles that you like or searching some topics. What I like about, let's say, well, we'll just say career education, okay? And I'm gonna, if I could, I'm not a good speller, so that's where we have to go. Yeah. So I could search in jobs, but here I could search in people, posts, companies, schools, groups. So let's say I wanna search posts for career education. I can go through and find some titles on different things on career education and decide if these are ones I want to follow or not. So that's sometimes a way to help kind of, you could say that it was in the past 24 hours, and that helps us. Again, this is kind of why recruiters like this. You can go in and really sort through the data. But if I want to do companies with career education, here's companies that I might want to follow. Other questions that I may have missed as I scrolled over. Should I post? Typical topical news stories. It can be that. A lot of times, because I don't consider myself a writer, I will take this type of thing. This is where you can get to my posts. So you can go to posts and activity and my posts. And I do have this group that's called ISU College Career Services. So that shows up here a lot. But this is one that I shared just 4 days ago. What I take is an article that I found interesting and I add my own opinion to that. I maybe give a little insight that I've learned. I add the hashtags to it to try to catch the people in those topic areas, and then I share it. And so here you can see, since I have a paid version, I can see that 1,200 people have looked at this, which I think is so cool. And then I can go in here and look at the 2 people that commented. Now I haven't had a chance to get back to them, but they've commented. So this is a great place for us to start a conversation on cover letters. I've worked with her. I don't know, she's probably in a mutual school with GCC. So what I'll do is go in here in the next couple days and respond to their suggestions and say, oh, that's a great idea, or I hadn't thought of that, or this is what I've seen students do. And we might get a whole blog going on, a conversation around cover letters that if people are following this, they might be able to do. So I know that our time is done and I don't want to take more of your time. Kate, is there anything else that, I know we've hit a lot of questions, but if you have questions, please feel free to email me or to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would be happy to answer any of those or get together with a group. Yeah, Kate put in my LinkedIn. My personal email is klldunn@iastate.edu. It's getting pretty full, but I love to talk LinkedIn. I'm kind of a nerd about LinkedIn, so anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you or your school or a group. If you need something, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for giving us an hour and a half of your day. I know some folks are in the middle of midterms right now, so this is great to have such a great crowd today. I'm sending out an email to folks with the link to our post-session survey. Since we do a fair amount of professional development programming at CERTL, your feedback on this is really helpful to help guide what we do moving forward. And that email will also have links to the event page where we will share slides once they're available, and a link to our YouTube page where we'll share a recording once the recording is available. And it's also got a couple upcoming professional development events that CERTL is hosting that may be of interest to you if today's session was useful and energizing. So thanks again to our attendees. Thank you to Karen Lawton-Dunn, and thank you to Mung, your wonderful grad student, for helping with logistics before the session and throughout with our question and answers.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Kate. And we will send you the slides, Kate. I'll do that as soon as we get done here. And that way you can send them out if you want with the evaluation or some other time.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.